There we go. Okay. We are recording. And we're in CAD Common here, Arch, 1310, drawings, and block. You want to do block insertion here. Click, click. Oh, nope, sorry. That one's okay to open too. Let's see. I forget what these are called from semester to semester. Let's open up AIA layers. That'll be one I want to open up. So we'll open this one up. And then there is a specific block one. Sorry, guys. I'm going to go through AutoCAD. Little trick. This PC, CAD Common, Arch, 1310, drawings. Okay, so now I can preview it. When I go through the open, find the exact one that I want, or one that oh, that's maybe what I want right there. Block edit. Okay.
Block edit, you said?
Yep. All right. So blocks. Let's talk about blocks. You are probably, if you haven't already, I guess, coming to the conclusion that there are a lot of things to draw in AutoCAD, right? And when you draw architectural elements or architectural spaces like floor plans and different things like that, you have a lot of elements in those that are the same, right? So we have doors in every project, and there are a lot of similar doors in every project. We have plumbing fixtures in projects, and there are a lot of similar plumbing fixtures in every project. We have windows. There are a lot of windows in projects, okay? And it probably will get very cumbersome if you were to have to draw these every single time you needed to use one, right? And so AutoCAD has what we call blocks. And blocks are essentially a way to create little, I guess there's two ways we can sort of define these. Number one, you could say they're kind of little templates, right? So we create blocks, and blocks are a collection of pieces of geometry that come together to form objects, right? And they form a template for something. So for example, this window. Okay, this window is a block, all right? And I know that it's a block because if I click on it, it is all glued together. It's one piece, right? And I look at it, sorry, let me get rid of a couple of, I feel like maybe there's, oh, I guess not. When I click, it looks like there's something extra there, but I guess not. It's within the block. Anyway, this is a collection of objects that's all glued together. It's a block. I know it's a block because when I click on it, it's all one piece. Okay. Generally speaking, blocks only have one grip associated with them, right? This block is a little special in that it has what's called an attribute. So the text in this annotation, this window marker, also has grips, but it's kind of a different grip than the actual grip that represents the block. This is the block insertion grip. Okay. So these form common objects in AutoCAD that you'll use over and over and over again, right? So windows and doors and plumbing fixtures and equipment and furniture and, you know, different things like that, okay? We create blocks to help us draw so that we don't have to continue to draw these same objects or copy them, hopefully copy them correctly over and over and over and over again, right? We want to be able to say, hey, I need that door, and I don't want to draw it, and I don't want to go find it and copy it. I want to use a block. And I want to be able to just somehow call it up on my screen and insert it into my drawing very quickly and be able to use it over and over and over again, okay? And so we use blocks to help us to draw quickly. Now blocks are all kind of combined into one piece. They're all glued together to make it easy to use them, okay? When you bring a block in, it's all cohesive, right? It's all, everything that you need with that block is there. When I move it, if I type M for move and I move this block, everything moves even if I don't select it all, right? So if I click on this block, click, right? I clicked on just one line of it, but because it's all glued together, I select the whole thing, right? That makes it very easy to move this block all together all at one time, and I don't leave any pieces behind, okay? Some other attributes of blocks, or I guess I shouldn't have said the word attribute because we're going to talk about attributes of blocks in a couple of days, but some other properties of blocks are that they have some kind of special properties that will help you manipulate them to suit your need, right? Meaning I have this window, and if I measure it, it is, 3 feet wide, and maybe I use a 3 foot wide window 90% of the time, right? But there's going to be the case where I need a 5 foot window, or a 6 foot window, or a 7 foot window, right? Blocks will allow you to kind of dismantle them or explode them, alter them, and recreate them very quickly at different dimensional sizes, right? So we can break them apart, we can alter them, we can create new blocks that then we kind of save away in a place that we specify so that we can find those again and again and again. Also, another kind of really great thing about blocks is that when you manipulate one instance of a block, every instance of that block changes, right? So if I have a building with 400 doors, all the doors are 3 foot wide, and the client comes to you and says, hey, 3 foot wide is kind of a wide door. I want to go down to 32 inches. And you think there are 400 doors in this building, right? I'm gonna have to go and stretch and make sure that every door is the same size, change it so they're all the right size. Well, with blocks, if every door in that building were the same block, I could alter one instance of a block and it would change and update every instance of that door in the building, okay? So blocks are editable. If you change one instance of a block, it will change every instance with that same name, okay? Another thing about blocks that is really great is that they will, when you create them, we create them a certain way so that when you insert them into AutoCAD, they assume the properties of the layer that they're inserted on, all right? So there's no worrying about opening up the block is a good way of saying it, and changing the layers so that the layers are appropriate, right? So this is a block. I change it to door. And then because there's a certain way that we make these, we generate them. With the layers, it assumes the layer properties of the layer that it was inserted on, okay? So that makes it really easy to organize them, okay? Blocks have a lot of integrity. It's all glued together. So if I try to, stretch it, I can't stretch it, right? All of the properties are kind of glued in there. If I try to, any type of manipulation won't work on a block, right? I can rotate it and copy it and do those things, but I can't stretch it or, use grips to stretch it or dimensionally change it while it's a block, right? I'd have to break it apart, and then, which is called exploding. I'd have to explode it, and then I would have to alter it and then make it a block again, okay? Now, hold on one second. Let me find, when we are creating blocks, we're going to create a bunch of different blocks. And when you go and you work in an office, you're going to find that they have likely a block library somewhere on their server, right? That has years and years and years of blocks that people have created. And they'll have them categorized. They'll have a folder for doors, and a folder for windows, and a folder for furniture, and a folder for plumbing fixtures, and a folder for fire extinguisher cabinets, and everything that you'd ever need, likely in a firm, they will have a block library with those blocks in there, right? And the idea behind that is that you don't have to research and generate those items, you don't have to research them, meaning you don't have to go out and find out how big is a fire extinguisher cabinet, right? We can guess, but the idea behind a block library is that somebody has one time researched that item, it's dimensionally correct and stable, and they've saved it in a block library for you to use, and it has integrity when you use it, right? So there's going to be somewhere on whatever firm you end up working at, they'll have a big folder of blocks that you'll use, and it'll make things really simple and help you draw. AutoCAD has kind of a built-in block library. We'll talk about this in a little bit more in a second. But a block library is going to be kind of essentially a collection of blocks that are already predefined, right? So we have what's called the Design Center in AutoCAD. And the Design Center is where all of AutoCAD's built-in blocks are located, right? So I look at some of these blocks that are located in AutoCAD, right? Some of them are in elevation view, as if I'm standing in front of them looking. Some of them are in plan view, like this kitchen, right? There's an elevation of a refrigerator. But these will all be very useful to you in the end. We've got home space planner. Okay, and we've got tables, and we have chairs, and exercise equipment apparently is an important block. Okay.
How did you open the Autodesk help seek there?
I'll show you in a second. I just wanted to show you that AutoCAD does indeed have kind of a block library built in, right? So, and it's called the Design Center, and I'll show you how to use that in a minute. But these are all blocks, right? And a block is a collection of pieces of geometry that are all glued together, just like I showed you with this window, okay? So what kind of things do we make into blocks? Really any architectural element or plumbing fixture or design element that you'll be using more than 3 or 4 times, right? If you're going to continue to copy this object multiple times, or if you know that in the future, you know, you're going to use this object many, many times, it would make sense to make a block out of it, okay? If you use something once or twice and you think, that's this piece of equipment, this furnace or whatever you're drawing, I'm never going to use this again, it's kind of a specialty item, right? Then maybe you don't need to make a block out of it, okay? But if you're going to be using it more than a few times, make a block out of it, okay? Another thing about blocks, you know, the way I'm saying it is that, oh, we create a door and then we have it to use forever, right? But one thing you may want to understand is that we have a lot of different sizes of doors, right? So, oh, you want to see it? Sorry, pause.
You want to, you know, come in and, because I have to have one.
It's a little tiny.
It's a little tiny. You want a bigger one?
Yeah, we're going to print a bigger one. It's cool though, right?
That's cool. That's pretty cool.
And that was like no setup, no muss, no fuss, just
Looking good.
Yeah.
take the file, put it on the SD card, and
So easy.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry. Sorry.
Kevin's not excited at all about our 3D printer either. It's kid size. That's okay.
How much does one of those cost?
The 3D printer?
Yeah.
It's like $1,000.
That's not bad.
It's not horrible.
Terribly bad.
Right? Yeah.
I was thinking like 10 grand or something like
The
that.
you can no, the bigger ones are a lot more expensive, but this little guy, no. Yeah, it was like it was like $1,000. And I think you can buy the supplies and a bunch of little accessories for a couple $100 more. So for $1,200, you're set up with a 3D printer at home. Which at the U, that guy Wally was saying that a bunch of the students got together and they purchased a 3D printer together to use in studio. So
I know what I'm asking for.
I know, right? I know. Oh, I know. My husband, for about 8 years, has wanted a 3D printer. He's like, this is where it's going. This is where it's all going, is 3D printing.
Do many firms use the 3D printers for their models?
Yeah, a lot of them do. Yeah, the bigger ones for sure. The smaller ones are probably like, oh, is the cost, you know.
Sure.
We buy these little ones and they do some pretty good stuff, right? But the bigger ones are fantastic, but they're really expensive.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna propose a grant for a gigantic one this year. We'll see what happens. Okay. So one thing you'll want to realize with like blocks is that, you know, you have a door block, but you're not going to have just one, right? Because there are a lot of different sizes of doors. So you may have 30 different blocks for doors, and it may take, you know, a little bit of time every time you create a new block, but once you've created it, you have it forever and you can continue to use it, okay? Now, there's two types of blocks we're going to talk about. And I'm going to talk about the first type of block today, and then next week we're going to talk about the second type of block. We have regular blocks, B-L-O-C-K, and we have W blocks, okay? And those are called right blocks. And the difference between the two is that regular old blocks live within the drawing that you create them in, okay? So if I open up Block Edit and I create this dishwasher, right? And then I go over here to Block Insertion, and I think, oh, I want to use my dishwasher that I created over there, right? A regular old block, because it is drawing specific, I created it here, and I can use it here. We'll go over how to do all this, right? But this essentially, you come into this Insert menu, and you pull your blocks from here, right? So if I wanted to use dishwasher, I'd click on it, click, and there I use it, right? But because I created that block in here, when I go to block insertion and I go to insert, it's not there, it's blank. There are no blocks in this drawing, okay? And so there is room for blocks and W blocks in industry. There are reasons why you would use one over the other, right? And I'm not going to talk about that just yet. But the difference between a block and a W block is that a W block, you save external from your AutoCAD file, so it's accessible from any file you're in, essentially, right? And again, there are reasons why you would want blocks in your files, like saved in there, right, for use. And then there are reasons why you would want to save blocks externally from your file so that they're usable in any file that you're, you have open, essentially. So let's just talk about how we actually create blocks, right? Okay. Any questions so far on anything? No? Okay. All right, so I'm going to close this up. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's talk about how to generate some blocks. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry,
Who are you going to show it to now?
Patrick.
Oh, okay. That's funny. I know, right? Well, it's so mesmerizing to watch it print, right? When he gets it going, we'll look at it. But we were thinking of putting one in that display window in the front of Jameson's office as you walk down the hall and just have it like going all the time. It's so cool to watch, Anyway, don't try to pull it apart. You say just try to pull it apart. Men.
Is it pretty sturdy?
Yeah.
It's pretty sturdy.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's talk about how we create a block, okay? First thing I want to talk about when we create a block, you have to draw the object that you are, want to make into a block. So if you want a door, you're going to draw the door. You want to make sure that it's dimensionally correct so that when you reuse it over and over and over again, that you're not using information that is incorrect, right? So whenever I create a block, right, for example, a door, hold on. Don't worry about that stuff. Okay. So when I create a block, I create the panel of the door, I draw the panel of the door, I draw the arc, and I make sure, I measure it distance. Right? 3 feet looks good. 3 feet looks good. Oh, it's 3 foot and 1/16. That's okay. It's still pretty good, right? So I make sure I draw it, I make sure it's dimensionally correct. Second thing I do is I make sure that I draw this on layer 0. Okay, so I told you before that layer 0 is a special layer, and that we don't we don't generally draw on it. It is a special layer. We don't generally draw on it, and the reason that we don't generally draw on it is because it is saved for block creation, right? And layer 0 has a property associated with it that when you use it to create a block, that is the reason why when you insert a block, it assumes the property of the layers it's inserted on, okay? Which makes sense. So that is why we, number one, don't draw on layer 0, and we use it to generate blocks with. So if I didn't create this on layer 0, I would select it and just change it to layer 0 before I generate the block, all right? So drawing my objects, I switch them to layer 0, and then I go on with my block creation. I'm going to come up here to the ribbon, and I'm going to go to my insert menu here. And we have a create block icon right here, okay? So I click on the down, my little down arrow here, and I choose create block. I think you can also just type block at the command line, okay? And we give the block a name. Now, there's not really a set way that you name blocks, but I like to name blocks like we name layers, right? Because there are so many, you get so many of these files that it's really hard to search through them all. If you name them appropriately, it makes it so much easier to be able to find them. So with blocks, you know, if this is a door, I will call it something like door, whoops, door dash wood, or WD wood, right? And then maybe something like how wide it is, 36 inches. So we have our 4-letter descriptor. You could even type out wood if you wanted to. Wood as opposed to metal or plastic, whatever doors are made out of, right? But I can look at this and say, oh, there's my 36-inch wood door, right? Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is name it. The second thing is I need to specify a pick point on the object, and the pick point ends up being the insertion point for that block that I create, which corresponds to where the grip is placed on that block, right? So when you click on a block and you see that grip show, it is showing the insertion point / pick point that you defined when you created the block, right? So I click on pick point, click. It bumps me out of the block menu. It says, hey, choose a point where you want the insertion point to be. And I'm not just going to click over here in space. I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to pick a meaningful spot on the object that I think will help me place it when I insert it, right? So when I place a door, you know, likely, oh, it is incorrect. See, I just missed that 1/16 of an inch, and it was a mistake. But I'm going to place that insertion point maybe like right there at that end point of my panel, because when I insert this block and I want to put it on a wall, I want that panel to touch the wall right there, right? So that I can trim out the opening. And so, you know, for a window, maybe it's the midpoint of the window. Maybe it's this end point, right? Maybe it's this point because you trim out the wall first and you want it centered on the wall, so you can place it centrally with that midpoint snap, right? But again, the idea is to place the base point so that it helps you when you insert the block, okay? So I come up here, I click, and I'm bumped back into the block definition. Now it says, I'm going to come over here, and it says, hey, select the objects you would like to be defined inside that block. So I click on select objects, click, and I'm going to select all of the objects that I want in that block. And you can select as many as you want, and whatever it takes. You select all the objects for that block. They don't have to be continuous, meaning if I had a door here and I had maybe like a side light that I wanted in that block, right? I could pick both of those objects and it would be just fine. When I'm done selecting, I hit enter, and it bumps me back into the block definition dialog box, okay? There's one other thing that we're going to do before we finish defining this block. We're going to choose how we want that block viewed immediately after we create it. So do I want to, these objects, do I want them to be exactly the same just in this drawing? The block will be created no matter what, right? But how do I want to use this geometry on the screen? Do I want to immediately convert it to a block so that this becomes a block also and then I can use it? Do I want those objects to be deleted out because I've drawn it and used it in my drawing and I don't need it anymore, right? Or do I want them to stay exactly the same and I make another door out of them, okay? So here I usually choose convert to block because if I'm generating a block, I usually want to use it immediately, right? So I'm going to choose convert to block. We want to make sure the units are inches, and that's really kind of all there is to it, okay? So I've named it, I have picked the insertion point, I have chosen select objects, I've chosen my objects, I have chosen to convert to block, and I hit OK. Okay, and it doesn't really look like much has happened, right? But something has happened, and there's our block, all right? And our grip / insertion point is right there, okay? All right, so this block, right, it immediately converted this object to a block, so I could move it, I could copy it, I could rotate it, I could do whatever I need to do in this drawing, okay? It is, I'm going to go back to my home menu. If I select this, you'll see the current layer that when this block was generated was layer 0. And so essentially what happened was when you created the block, it inserted itself as a block into this drawing. And so it inserted itself on the current layer, which was 0. So if I change this, I can change it to like door, right? And it changes to door, right? And it assumes the layer properties of the layer that I put it on, which is great, okay? I can click on this and I can delete it. All right, so let's, I'm just gonna delete that out for now. I'm gonna create one more block and then we'll talk about how we use those blocks, right? How do we bring them back onto our screen for use? Okay, let's do this tub right here. Okay, so I have this tub, right? And I want to turn it into a block, right? It's something that I think I will use, and you know, so I draw it out and I make sure it's dimensionally correct. DIST, distance, click, click, and I look at it, it's 5 feet long, that's pretty good, right? Maybe we make it a little bit longer, S for stretch, and I stretch it out 12 inches, so it's a 6 foot long bath, right? Looks pretty good. That block is great, you know. First thing, step 1, I make sure it's on layer 0. So if I haven't drawn it on layer 0, before I perform the block creation, I'm going to make sure it's on layer 0, okay? And then second step, I initiate the block definition. So I go to Insert, Create a Block, or I could type block at the command line. And I'm going to give it a name. So this one is a plumbing fixture, PFix, maybe a tub, dash 72 inches, right? So, you know, plumbing fixtures are obviously sinks and toilets and different things like that, right? So plumbing fixture, tub, 72 inches, great. Specify a pick point, click.
Can you have more than one pick point on a block?
No. Nope, just one. Yep. And I look at this and I think, well, what would be the best insertion point? What would help me placing this? And it's likely going to be maybe one of the corners here, right? I don't know which one, but I'll just pick this front corner. Click. When I do that, it bumps me back into the block definition. I'm going to select the objects I want to create into a block. Click. Bumps me back out. And I select the objects and I hit enter when I'm done selecting. Again, you can select multiple objects. They don't have to be continuous or touching or anything like that. You can just select what you want in the block. I choose what I want to happen to these objects once I create the block. Do I want to keep them as loose geometry? Do I want to make them a block, or do I want to delete them? In this case, I'm just going to choose delete just so you can see what happens. I hit OK, and the block disappears, right? It's deleted out, okay? All right, so how do I use these blocks once I create them, right? The creation is not that difficult. How do I use them? And I just want to remind you, we're just creating regular old BLOCK blocks, right? Not W blocks today. Well, to use them, we are going to insert them, right? Blocks, by definition, regular old blocks, they live within the drawing you create them in. So those two blocks I just generated in block edit, this file, they only exist in block edit. So if I go over here to block insertion, they won't be in there, okay? All right, I'm back in block insertion here, and I want to use those two blocks that I just created. I'm going to delete this tub out. We're going to get rid of these doors. Kind of side note, door geometry, right? We have the panel, we have the swing. It would be a good idea for the blocks that you're going to generate to, if it's a door or a window, to put a blank circle in there for the tag. This is called a tag. It's annotation, and it describes the architectural element. And I'm doing that because in a couple of classes we'll learn how to put this annotation in there, right? How do we put the number 4 in there, okay? And this will just be a circle, right? It'll be maybe 6 inches in diameter, 4 to 6 inches in diameter. Okay, I'm going to delete that door out. Okay, so we don't have any doors. We need to use our door block, and we don't have a bathtub. We need to put our bathtub in there. So to use our blocks, I'm going to come up here to Insert, and that's under the Insert menu, or sorry, tab on the ribbon. Insert, and we have here our gallery view of all of the blocks that are currently in this file. So we have a lot, actually, right? We've got all the dishwashers and everything, and everybody wants to go see what's happening, right? It's so exciting. But we have those other two blocks as well, right? So we have our, and these are alphabetical. Let's see, where's our bathtub? There it is, bathtub. Oh, nope. Where are my blocks? Plumbing fixture, it was plumbing fixture, right? Where is it? maybe it's at the end. Oh, it didn't alphabetize them. So there's my P-Fix tub 72 inch, and there's my door 36 inch, okay? So if I want to use my door, ideally, you know, I found it in the gallery here. Ideally what I didn't do, and I should have, is I should have changed my layer to the door layer, so that when I insert those blocks, they go onto the right layer, right? And then I'm going to come over here to Insert. I'm going to go to Door, click, and there's my door. I click and insert it, right? Okay, I could copy it, but we want to learn how to insert blocks, so I'm going to click on Door again. And you notice that my cursor, the insertion point, is right where I defined that base point, right? And it helps me place it because I can click and place it. And we'll have one more down here.
So
Click.
if your isn't right where you need it, you just click and set it on the drawing and then
Move it.
just move it wherever you need.
Yep. Okay, so we have all of our doors in there. Let's put our plumbing fixture in. So I'm going to go to Home, and we are going to change to, P-Fix. We have an A-Fix, so we'll use that, A-Fixture. Insert, and our tub, click, and I come in here, and that was a pretty good insertion point, so I click on that corner and I insert it. Now, this is a white colored layer, right? So I think, oh, did it actually get on plumbing fixture, right? Or did I accidentally insert it on 0? I just can click on it and look and see it is on A fixture. I'm going to change A fixture to be a different color. Let's make it blue. There we go. Looks pretty good. Okay. All right, any questions on that so far? Okay. So a couple more things on blocks, right? Things, again, you generate into blocks are going to be architectural elements you're going to use several times, right? There are going to be some other things that you're going to generate into blocks, though. Things like we're going to create a title block that we generate into a block. And a title block, let me grab a set of drawings.
You ever heard anybody refer to those as funny papers?
Funny papers?
Mhm.
These? No. Where? Do people call them funny papers?
On the job site. that's
Do
pretty-
they?
Yeah, it's one of the nicknames.
Comics?
You know?
Right. That's funny. Well, you try and generate them and see how.
See how funny it is looking at it.
A title block, right, is essentially the information block that surrounds your set of drawings, right? So, this outline area, right, that goes all the way around the page, that's your title block, okay? And your title block down here, it's kind of an information block. It contains all of the general information about the project that you're working on, right? So it has the title of the project, it has the sheet name, it has who the owner is and who the designer is and all that good stuff, okay? And a title block will become a block in our class. We'll generate one. Okay, so when we create a title block, right, it's going to be just like any other type of block, except you're drawing something that is a little bit different, right? You're going to be drawing something that is going to fit on a piece of paper, right? We're not there yet, but I'm just preparing you. You know, so if we have this 11 by 17 inch piece of paper, we're going to draw a rectangle that's 11 by 17, and we're going to draw the title block, you know, as we see it on these pages or however it's defined in your assignment, okay? Okay, so next couple of things, we're going to talk about how we can edit our blocks, okay? And then how you can explode them and use the geometry that you've created to create another block, okay? But I'm going to take a quick little break and I'm going to get some more coffee. So let's take a 5-minute break today. And I want to check out what they're doing over here. So.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah, right? Like, something is definitely happening, so. It's in the window.
you just use a spatula. So what happens is that has a heat in the building. So, and so when it's done free, it goes cold, which actually, so it was like, I don't want to break it, but I mean, really it kind of like just pretty cool. Yeah, and the old ones that we have, they are, you use like a glue.
find an intro
Whatever
when
you
you go
yeah.
download your files. All right, so we're back. 3D printers in the window. You guys can all go look at it. All right. Okay. Well, let's finish this up. Like I said, a couple final things. Number one, how do we change these, right? And then how can we manipulate them into other, blocks, right, that are similar? So I want to copy this, copy, drag it up, okay? If I want to take this block and I want to break it apart back into its component parts, and component parts, I mean, this is a line, this is a line, this is a line, this is an arc, right? If I want to do that, I'm going to do what's called an explode, okay? And the explode command is right there. And I can type X at the command line, enter. And it's as simple as grabbing the object, hitting enter, and you're done, right? So I just exploded that block, okay? I broke it down into its component parts. Now, by doing that, I only have exploded that one instance. And by doing that, I have broken its association with its block, right? So this is no longer a block that's all glued together to pieces. The pieces are all glued together. And it's no longer associated with the, let's see what this is called. I forget already. Door, wood, 36 inches, right? So it's no longer associated with that. So if I change it, it's not going to redefine the original block because they've been disassociated. Now, you're probably wondering, well, you exploded that. Did you get rid of the original block? And the answer is no, it's still there, right? So we still have it. We can manipulate it and use it. But what I can do now with this is I could make it a different size, right? Circle, and maybe I want to do a 32-inch door. So I can type 32, and I can S for stretch, and I can stretch that down to 32 inches, okay? And I can get rid of this because you know me, I don't like arcs. L for line, bring that over, TR, trim, enter, enter, and I trim off what I don't need, and I delete that line, okay? Now this line is blue, so I can just MA, match properties, enter, click, click, and we look at these and they are indeed on layer 0, okay? So I've just redefined this block from a 36-inch door to a 32-inch door, right? So now if I wanted to create a 32-inch door, because half the doors in my building are 36 inches and half of them are 32 inches, I can go to insert, create a block, right? And I can type door dash wood dash 32, pick point, click, select objects, click, select the objects. When I'm done selecting, I hit enter. I hit OK. Well, I want to convert to block. I hit OK. And now that's instantly turned into a block. And because my current layer was a fixture, it turned blue. I can grab this and I can change it to a dash door. And there's our 32-inch door. And now when I go over here to my insert menu, there's my 32-inch door right there. Okay. All right, so we can explode them. We can also edit them. So if I want to keep the block, but I want to maybe change some aspect about it, right? Like this door, I thought, oh, you know what? I forgot to add the annotation marker in there, right? I wanted to have a little circle in here so that when I go back and add my annotation, there's a place for it. So I think, okay, I need to edit this block. Again, I don't want to get rid of it. I don't want to explode it because I still want the 32-inch door, but I need to add information or change something about it, okay? So to edit the block, there's a couple ways we can do it. I can choose block editor up here, block editor, and it's going to say, hey, which block would you like to edit? And I go probably down to the bottom. No, it's down. Now they're alphabetical. I can click on door, wood 32 and hit OK. And I bumped into a block editing screen. So it kind of takes me out of the normal model space, bumps me into an editor, and I can edit it here. When I edit it, that means like I can draw some lines. Let me just draw a few things to just kind of show you what, there's some editing, right? When I'm done editing, I hit close block editor, save the changes. Oh, and all of my doors with that same name, right? All of my doors with that same name are edited. I can also double click on the block very quickly twice. Click, click, and the block editor pops up. Instead of having to search for the block, it automatically knows that because I double clicked on it, that it's this one, and I can hit OK. And I can delete out that stuff that I don't need and hit close block editor. Save changes. Okay. I can also click on it. I can right click and choose block editor. Okay. Another way that you can edit blocks, so those are kind of the block editor method where, you know, I would say that block editor method is very good when the surrounding environment doesn't matter to you. Like if I want to add a piece of annotation to it. The walls around my door don't really matter, right? But if I have a door and I think I want to add a frame right here, and that's going to interact with the wall, you know, or maybe, I guess maybe a better way of saying it is that if my surrounding environment is going to drive the change, then I want to do what's called an edit in place, okay? And if I click on this and I right click, I can choose edit block in place. And that will, if I hit OK, that will allow me to edit the block right here. So if I have an opening and I want to match the opening, right, and I don't know exactly how big it is, but maybe this, you know, the wall, hold on, let me just illustrate this. There we go. We'll do this. Oh, it's crooked. It's the world you're entering, people. Things need to be nice and straight, right? If I right click and I hit edit block in place, and every instance of this block will need to be changed, like this is going to change, that one's going to change, right? I can use the environment here to drive this change. So circle, I don't know how big it is, I don't even have to measure, I just have to use the environment, delete, S for stretch, right? TR, enter, enter, trim, 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 oop, gotta delete those little guys out, oop, delete, delete, and this is
You can't select anything other than
just the block.
the block.
Yep, exactly. When it grays out, it's not editable. So I take that and I go to home and I change this to layer 0. So essentially the edit block in place, which is, I would say 90% of the time is what I use because I'm editing a block to fit an environmental change, right? Like the washer is going to be bigger because I have more space, or it needs to be smaller because it's too big for the wall, where the walls are, you know? 90% of the time my changes are environmental, so I use the edit in place so that I can use the geometry around it to edit the block, right? I can hit save changes, okay, and it's changed. Now, a little warning with this, right? I changed the block that is called door 36, right? And now it changed every instance. So if that was your intent, great, right? But if you didn't want to do that, right, you wanted to create a new block with these environmental changes, you would have to explode it and then recreate a new block, all right? Okay. Any questions so far?
So you're saying if you're working on a big plan, you have 300 doors, and you're like,
Right.
oh, mistake, leave in this size,
Mhm.
and you go through and you edit it, and it edits all the doors, you still have to go back and edit the walls to match doors.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there is some cleanup, right? But
at least it's streamlined part.
it streamlines part of it.
Part of it.
Yes. And it also shows you like, oh, I know these are all perfect because I changed them universally.
Right.
So now the wall change is, you know, you
Straight
poop
back.
exactly to that point. There's no measuring, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so we have our doors. One final thing for today, we'll talk about the Design Center. And the Design Center is AutoCAD's built-in block library that you can use, okay?
Which is cool.
It is great. Yeah, it's cool. It's great. What I like about things like that is that when they're built in, they have integrity, right? They're the right size. They're the right layers. There's no viruses attached to them, right? So we like built-in block libraries. There aren't a ton of blocks, so you still have to draw some and you still have to maybe go out and download some. But in general, you'll get a lot of things that you need. If you type AD, and AD is Architectural Design Center. Okay, and hit enter. You get this menu popping up, right? Now, don't click on anything in here. I'm going to give you a little, this is really tricky. It's not tricky, and it is. It's not tricky to use, but where they're located is ridiculous, okay? So you'll notice here that, okay, come on. I don't know why they haven't fixed this. But it goes from desktop to this PC, default, program files, Autodesk, Autodesk 2018, sample, ENUS Design Center. No joke, right? That is the path through the program files to find this. And if you click on anything else like plugins, click, and you don't remember where it is, and sometimes this closes up. I mean, game over, right? Because even I have a hard time remembering exactly where this is because we have an ENUS up here. Anyway, so I'm going to come back over here, click on Design Center. So is yours open to where it needs to be? Have you guys, okay. So if it's open to where it needs to be, don't click over here, like no joke. I'd even just close it. If you have this on your screen, close that out so you don't, engage it.
Hang on, I'm trying to.
Oh no, okay.
What was it?
ENUS. And now I've closed my browser. Where is it? Let's see.
Okay, there it is.
Did you find it? Oh, dang it. Oh, phew. Okay. No. Okay. All right. So these are really easy to use, and there are some architectural things in here. There are also things for other, like engineering type stuff, right? But the way that you use these, we have kitchens, landscaping, probably home space planning, house designer. Those will all be very useful for you. To use them, you click and hold, drag over into model space, right? You see it kind of pops up. You click and hit enter, enter, enter 3 times, right? So click and hold, drag it over, click, enter, 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 and it brings it in. Now, what's tricky about this is that it's all glued together, right? Blocks are used for what we've talked about today, but they're also sometimes used to sort of organize things, like it will clump everything together in one piece, which is nice for other uses than just creating furniture and appliances, right? So this right here is what's called a nested block. So it's a bunch of blocks that have been blocked together, right? So we've blocked these things twice. It's a nested block. And essentially, to break these items apart, we are going to explode them. So I'm going to type X, enter, click, enter, and it breaks those apart. So now I have these individual blocks. Okay. Now, one thing that you're going to start noticing is that, when you create blocks, those blocks show up here in your insert menu, right? So, like the doors and the bathtub that we created, they show up here in my gallery view, right? Any other block that you mistakenly or purposefully bring into your drawing will show up in your block gallery, right? So all of these blocks, like this one is called Bed Queen, right? Just by inserting it in there, it is now in here. So House Designer came in because that was a block. And then, let's see, these are alphabetized now. It appears as if. Where is our queen bed? It's here somewhere. Where is it? Oh, right there. Yep, right there. So queen bed, right? So any block that's brought in, whether purposefully or not, it comes in and it inserts itself in this gallery, okay? We can access all of our blocks through this gallery. We can also just type I for insert, enter, which you'll see me do a lot. And then this drop down right here, it's a list view of the gallery. So if you know what your block is called, right, you don't graphically need to see it, you can just choose, oh, PFix tub, there we go, okay, click, there it is, right? All right, so was everybody able to access the Design Center? Okay. Well, one final thing, we'll talk about one final thing. You can download blocks online, right? I don't mind if you do that. You will need to know how to draw these and use them. So you're going to have an assignment and you will have to generate some blocks, right? You need to know how to do it. But I don't mind if, you know, when you're working and you're using Kohler sinks and toilets, go and download them, right? Because the manufacturer draws them. They're exactly the right size. And generally speaking, if they come from a manufacturer, they have integrity, okay? So I can go to Kohler.com and we can, okay, it might take a second to find it, but we will find it. Let's do kitchen and bath. And is there a search somewhere?
Because I noticed that when I was looking at lighting, is if you look at a certain lighting fixture, they would have the
Mhm.
AutoCAD file
Yeah.
associated with that.
Yeah.
That's kinda cool.
It's
You can
perfect.
Stick that right in your drawing.
Exactly. Yep. And I mean, it's really beneficial for them to do that because then use their
Use the
product.
product, yeah.
Exactly, because it fits and it was easy, you know. So let's type in .dwg files. Oh, DWG. AutoCAD, SketchUp, Autodesk Seek. It looks like there's a couple other places that I don't normally frequent where they have their AutoCAD stuff. Okay, let's go to Autodesk Seek, which I was going to say they changed the name of Autodesk Seek, so they may need to update that. All right, so I moved down here. Oh, here are all their symbols, right? So they've got a bunch of stuff. Let's do commercial lavatories, right? DWG, click, and it pops up this file folder. Show in folder. This is a zipped file. To unzip it, you right click and extract all. Extract. Okay, look at all those. I was gonna say the list looks short, but I bet this file folder has about 50 toilets in it, or lavatories, sinks, sorry. And so here they all are, right? I double click on one. That's a side view, right? File, open. I'm gonna do my little preview, see if I wanna preview it, right? So I'm gonna go to, this PC. I have mine saved in that downloads file. Downloads, labs, there we go. Oh, it won't preview them in that file. Oh, there we go. Right, so you can go in there and say, oh, that's the one I want right there. Open, right, and there it is. Now, we'll talk about W blocks a little bit more next week and how to use them. But in this case, you know, this sink it's in its own file essentially, right? So if I create a block in this file, it's not really going to translate into any other file, right? So that's where W blocks come in. So downloading these is perfectly legitimate, right? Here's the sink, I want to use it. But how do we make it so that these blocks are accessible from any file I'm working in, which makes sense. Okay, so that'll be kind of our next topic. But you can download blocks from manufacturers.
So is this, when you were clicking on that, is this not a block?
No.
Okay, so
This
you
is,
have- So
You
once
make
you
that
download
block
something
though.
like that,
We
you have
will-
to
yeah.
make a block.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. But we're going to talk about W blocks, which will solve this problem. Yeah. Anyway, yes. You guys already want to go forward more, right? Okay. So for your assignment, let's see, here we go. I don't think I have it published yet. Let's go to 1310 and assignments. You guys actually have quite a few assignments right now. We have block insertion. I'm tempted to just assign this on Tuesday. You guys have quite a few assignments that are coming due in the next by Tuesday. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just wait to assign that, and then we'll talk about W blocks on Tuesday and then assign it for both of these assignments. Let's do that. Just finish up what you have to do, and then we'll do an assignment on Tuesday. Okay.